Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Governors-elect in 6 states, including Enugu and Lagos, have received the certificates of return. Elected members of the state houses of assembly have also been issued with their certificates of return. Enugu State Governor-elect Peter Mbah received his certificate of return from the Independent National Electoral Commission, alongside the Deputy Governor-elect Ifeanyi Osai and members-elect of the Enugu State House of Assembly. In his remarks after receiving the certificate, Mbah re-echoed, stretched his hand of fellowship to other contestants in the election and pledged to run an all-inclusive and open-door administration, adding that election time is over and it is time to come together and start the building of a new, prosperous Enugu State. For more on other officials who received their certificate of return, Arise News has this report.
Presenting the certificates, INEC National Commissioner in charge of Ebonyi, Enugu and Imo States, Kenneth Ukeagu, reassures the public of the Commission's resolve to continue deepening the nation's democracy despite the challenges. That those presented with the certificates of return include the governors-elect of Plateau State, Caleb Mufang, his Gombe State counterpart Inuwa Yahaya, and Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State. INEC also issued the certificates of return to governors-elect and state houses of assembly members-elect in Katsina, Enugu and Akwa Ibom states. Plateau Governor-elect Caleb Mufang says he will rebuild the state by accommodating all people irrespective of their political affiliations while seeking the support of all residents. Governor Inuwa Yahaya of Gombe State says his re-election by the people will witness massive transformation so as to consolidate on the gains of his first 4 years.
We will do our best to justify the confidence that has been reposed in us. And together with my members elected in the House of Assembly, I want us to join hands together and know that this is for Plateau, this is about Plateau, and that through us and by us, Plateau will become great again.
This certificate that we received today is a license for us to go all out, to do more, so that we deliver on the mandate, we deliver on the needs of the people, and provide the dividends of democracy that is badly needed in this country.
The Katsina State Governor-elect Diko Rada is commending INEC for conducting what he calls the most credible and transparent election in the history of Nigeria. Diko says his mission is to move Katsina State to greater heights.
Our mission is to build the future of Katsina State, and I want to assure you that we will try as much as we can to deliver on this mandate.
In Osun State, House of Assembly members-elect are also presented with their certificates of return with a charge to serve the people dutifully. In Lagos, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu also gave assurances of improved government performance with a renewed mandate in his second term.
Regardless of where in Lagos we live, or what our mother tongue or dialect is, or what God asks us to worship, we are all set out from the hope and expectation that our hustle will pay off one day. That today will be better than our yesterday, and indeed tomorrow will be a better today for all of us. These ideals and aspirations are the things that truly matters to us, over and above any of the differences that may exist amongst us.
This is another milestone in the transition process, and as the nation awaits Inauguration Day on May 29, the onus is on those elected office holders to make a full proof of their mandates.
Joining us now from Enugu is Peter Mbah, the governor-elect of Enugu State. He will be telling us his vision for the coal city state as he becomes the next governor. Good morning, Mr. Mbah. Thank you very much for joining us on the morning show.
Thank you very much, Ruben.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
First, congratulations. But quickly, in your acceptance speech, you called on India Enugu to come together because you are all brothers and sisters, and that there will be no difference between Nsukka and Nkanu East. I guess you were referring to the circumstances during the collation of results. But what has been the response to that your offer of the olive branch for all other contestants in that election to come together and work with you? What has your experience been so far, before and after?
Thank you very much, Ruben. The task before us, as you rightly pointed out, is to ensure that we all come together as Enugu. First of all, we congratulated Enugu for making us their preferred choice, because we, as you know, in the build-up to the campaigns and the electioneering process, we took a bold view of what Enugu State could achieve if we all work together as a people. And then the message also resonated with them. So what we did immediately was to begin to develop, or indeed put those campaign promises into actionable plans, and to also develop policies that, we said to Enugu that we want to grow the economy in a manner that Enugu has not witnessed in the past. And obviously that means that there are specific things that we must do, and we have to be deliberate about it. We also said to Enugu we want to kick poverty away. And there are a couple of promises that are specific, because we didn't just make a vague promise. We made promises that are tied to timelines. So we know that Ndi Enugu are expectant. They want to begin to see those promises we made during the campaigns. They want to see them manifest. Typical one is the water. We promised them that they would have water in all their homes in 180 days. We've set forth our done already. We're already working on making sure that we accomplish those campaign promises. And in doing that, we've also invited all my brothers that we ran this race with. The truth is that we may be running on a different political platform, but we're united by our passion to ensure the growth and the development of Enugu State. And that's why I'm extending the olive branch to all of them.
Congratulations, Governor-elect Peter Mbah. A lot of people are still commenting on the kerfuffle that happened as regards Nkanu West and Nsukka and the results and all of that. And the person you're running against, one of your opponents, the Labour Party, has said he's going to go to court to restain his stolen mandates. And it was really a neck-and-neck race, just 3,000 votes difference. I mean, what do you say about all of that going on?
I believe that the democracy we practice has bequeathed us with, that infrastructure of ventilating our views. It's very difficult for anybody in any race who lost to give sometimes credence to the process. But I think that the infrastructure we have in our democratic process has provided us that platform to ventilate our views. So I think that's certainly the right thing to do. We believe that the voices of the people of Ndi Enugu have been heard, and that they've shown their preference. And that preference is us. We believe our message resonated with them. And that's the message of tomorrow. And that tomorrow, that as our tagline speaks, is here. And we've tried to unpack what that tomorrow holds for Ndi Enugu.
Well, let's talk about some of the things you are promising the people of Enugu State. Because even in that your acceptance speech. So much packed into just an acceptance speech. You say you want to build economic zones, you want to build a school, you want to make sure that there is water in every part of Enugu state within 180 days. You build a world theme park and that the administration will be in a hurry. Okay, fine. In your manifesto, you say you raise GDP of Enugu state from the value of 4.4 billion to about 30 billion within a space of 8 years. Well, isn't that a bit on the ambitious side? And before you joined us, we were discussing the debt profile, the public debt profile of the states and the federal government of Nigeria. Enugu seems to be heavily indebted. So how are you going to fund all these projects that you have outlined and that you say you are in a hurry to deliver? Where would the money come from? Have you given some thought to where you will get funding? More so, as the mantra in Nigeria is that revenue is a big problem that the next administration will have to address.
Great point, Ruben. The truth is that we acknowledge that going by our current revenue model, there is just no way on earth those campaign promises could be met. So which is why we've said from the onset that we're going to disrupt the current revenue model. Positively, we recognize that this current revenue model that focuses on a rent-seeking approach where we have to rely on the federation account or go to collect from the federation account our rent every month, come back here, spend it, and of course the money we collect and of course the fraction of what we get of it that we get from the internally generated revenue is hardly enough to optimally intervene across all the critical sector of our economy, which is why we said, look, we would have to tweak our revenue, our current revenue model. We have to unlock our rural economy, for example. We have to explore our resources, the resources that we have in the state, which we haven't done in the past. So there are a number of things we have to do in the revenue part of things, because we didn't just come out and make those promises in the, pick them from the blue. Those numbers are, numbers that we have carefully reviewed and numbers that we know that based on the disruption that we're going to witness in our revenue model, we are able to basically grow our economy, not just by the government activities, but also making sure that we provide both the policy and the fiscal environment to attract private sector investment too. So that growth size we talked about in terms of our GDP, you're going to see that coming from both the public sector and the private sector. Again, if you look at what we've done, we've not quite optimally addressed our rural economy. So what we've done in terms of agriculture only contributes a fraction to our GDP today. But that fraction, again, we believe is suboptimal. So what we need to do is to essentially look at ways to scale up our activities in the agriculture sector. But beyond just provide the production, we're also going to process and we're going to package with a lot of value chain in the agri sector that we want to tap into. So for us in the agriculture is going to be migrated from just being an agriculture sector to agriculture and agro-allied industrial sector, because there are a whole lot of economic activities in that sector that we've not tapped into, and we're going to be looking into doing that. Okay. We also now have the energy and the mineral resources sector, which is something new. We haven't explored all the mineral resources, indeed the mineral resources we have in the state, and also the energy resources. So those are the things we'll be looking at. But above all, we believe that we want to make Enugu State the preferred destination for investment and business. Okay. And as I've always said to people, businesses are not Father Christmas. they are obviously interested in returns on investment. So they want the environment, both the policy and the fiscal environment, to be friendly. And because of my background, I know that working with investors, prospective investors and businesses, we're able to attract them here because we know how to help them de-risk the investment flow.
Okay. Mr. Mbah, I read through your manifesto that pretty much talks about tomorrow, but let's be analytical here. The first question will be, are you going to be raising bonds and raising more debts? Because you simply do not have the money. Your IGR was about 26 billion, which is disproportionate to what you get from FAC, which is about 60 billion. So in a year, you get about 86 to 90 billion thereabouts. And you have so much to do. So the first question will be, are you going to be raising a bond? And soon are you going to be doing it? Sort of like a bond to give you a headroom or a leeway to be able to do some things. You talked about the fact that you want to provide water that's been moribund for so many years in 180 days. How much is that project going to cost you to start with?
Okay, so I'm glad that you're going into the, which is something you do, frankly, if you want to craft strategies. You want to look at the trend and perhaps the growth pattern, and maybe also get data on where things are on the economic side of. But the truth is that if we were to do a trend analysis, our growth pattern over the years, we cannot be talking about a sevenfold growth, growing the economy, because that hasn't been the pattern of growth. So if I came here and told you that, look, I'm going to do exactly what we've done, always done in the past, and expect to grow the economy sevenfold, of course, that wouldn't be true. But which is why I said, look, we're going to look beyond the current model. We actually want to disrupt innovatively the current revenue model. So it's not going to, we're going to get a head start, because there are a couple of things that we have to do. In terms of bond, that isn't our immediate, it wouldn't be where we're looking at. Providing, as I said, attracting investors would require you providing some basic infrastructure. And if you look at the way we've explained the things we want to do in the agri sector, we said we want to attract commercial farmers. And to attract commercial farmers, it means that we have to create that environment for them to come. So we want to, and most times what create friction for the hurdles that these commercial farmers have are the friction they have with the communities. And we've said, look, we're going to address that by making sure we legislate the harmonization of these rural land and ensure that we parcellate them and get them ready, build access roads and the feeder roads for those farmlands so that these commercial farmers will find it attractive. In terms of even the current farmers we have in the states, we also indeed want to enhance their skills. We want to empower them, providing them extension services. So there are things that we're going to do that will disrupt our revenue model. So this revenue, the current revenue model that focuses on the FAC and IGR may have served their maximum potential. So in order for us to be able to do the things we have promised our people, we have to rejig that model. And we have to attract funds from these different.
Okay, so Mr. Mbah, what I'm saying is, if you want to do all of this,
let me just also.
Okay, you can land, but if you want to do all of this,
for the water, specifically
the water too. But I've still come back to the question about revenue, because because if you want to do, just go ahead,
No, so we made the promise of doing, getting the water to our people in 180 days based on a robust studies that we've done in the water resource sector. This current government has already been able to access funding from the French Development Agency. They've only been able to draw a part of that. And a lot of things that are required, the soft things, for example, the engineering, the GIS mapping, the procurement of the M&Es, the mechanicals and electrical components of the supplies of the water schemes that we have. Those have all been done. So what we're essentially doing now, some of the items that we needed to essentially front load, because some of the pumps that we need, first of all, it is important to note that we have already existing water schemes in Enugu. We have the Oji River and the Ajali. Those two schemes can produce over 130,000 cubic meters of water to Enugu. And our daily consumption today is about 100,000 cubic meters. So what are the problems? The problems are largely with the mechanicals and the electricals. Those mechanical components, we've constantly gone back and forth on repairing, and repairs haven't quite served us. And some of those pumps may have lived out their design life. So what we want to do is to order them and make sure that they arrive here in good time. They are not off-the-shelf items. They are items that are built to spec. Okay. So we're going to get them, and we're confident, as we did promise in the Enugu, that in 180 days, and by the way, that's our pessimistic case, we're going to have water in all the homes in Enugu metropolis. And then, of course, we're thinking about the other areas.
So the question was, how much is that going to cost? I mean, you talked about GIS mapping. I know the World Bank brings out money for GIS mapping and the likes, and I know there are timelines for all of that. That's great. How much is it going to cost? Secondly, I want to know what the revenue model is going to be, because you're talking about agriculture. Me and you, we both know that all those things will still take about a year or two to materialize. Even if you build all the infrastructure and attract the businesses, you still have to give them tax holidays before the commercial farmers come in. What will be the initial jumpstart revenue model? You're going to take more debts. You're going to talk to the investment bankers. You're going to have a leeway. What is it going to be? And how much is that water project going to cost? What was the rate of that facility from the French people that you talked about?
So, for example, the state already has, as I said, from the French development agencies, we already have funds. The GIS mapping and those other soft items, the modeling, the review of our water system in Enugu, they've all been completed. In terms of GIS. So the GIS is not something that we're going to start. We already have the GIS mapping. I've talked about what may be the longest lead item there, which is the pump. Those pumps, frankly, we've had to, because we've promised in the Enugu that these things will happen in 180 days. We've had to front load those orders of the pumps, because it takes maybe 3 to 4 months to get them delivered here. And so they are already on. So in terms of our revenue model, so the state has already assessed, we have that, the fund for this water scheme is about $50 million. And that fund is available, so we're not looking for it. We're not looking to find money to fund it. The fund is available. We've actually started drawing down on it. So we're able to deal with the water challenges without worries, because the fund is there. In terms of what do we deal, the area of this revenue model that we keep going back to, don't forget that we do not have challenges going to engage the financial institutions if we're able to show them that, look, this is the financial model we have. We need to access this amount of money, and this is how we're able to repay this money from these projects that we're doing. Because again, I'm coming from a very strong private sector background, and project management and project development is my forte. So I understand how to engage the financial institutions to be able to get a head start in the area of funding. Because again, what you want to show in your financing model is that, look, this project is viable. We're not just doing this for charity. If we're able, yes.
In other words, you are saying that we are going to borrow. Enugu State has very low IGR. Enugu State is heavily indebted. Unemployment rate in Enugu State is over 31%. So this revenue model that you are talking about to address all the projects you have outlined. So this revenue model is to go to financial institutions and borrow more money. Do I understand, is my interpretation correct? Hello, Mr. Mbah.
So what we are, yes, Ruben, I can hear you.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Yes, so borrowing in itself is not the problem. What is important is, do you want to borrow that money for consumption or production, right? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And is that money you're borrowing, is there a model that shows how you repay and how you also grow your economy, reduce the unemployment that you've just pointed at, and also get people out of that, those that are living in the pit of poverty, leave them out of that pit of poverty. So borrowing in itself is not the issue, it's not a problem. But what we're saying is that we have sectors that we have identified as a growth productivity sectors. And those sectors, we are not performing optimally in those sectors. And we need to be able to scale things up. And in order for us to scale things up, we need to attract private sector investment. To do that, there are key infrastructure that the state must provide. And there are key things that the state must do to de-risk this investment flow. And in order for us to do those things, we may need to assess funding, okay, to be able to make sure that we provide that attractive environment for these investors to come, and for us to produce more, and for us to process what we produce, and for us to export those things. So it's a model that, has basically is going to address all the things that you have pointed at, the unemployment, because from just doing, and I've only just narrowed down on one sector. We have a couple of other productivity sectors that we haven't delved into. We're just talking about agriculture, but don't forget that we also have, tourism. We also have the commerce and industry. We have the energy and the mineral resources. We have the creative industry. There are a number of sectors we have identified as growth productivity sectors, and we would have to basically make it attractive for private sector to come and invest in those sectors.
But how confident are you? Let's go back to the political question, that the certificate of return will remain with you. Because the margin in Enugu State, the margin of victory is just about 3,000 votes. I know elsewhere, during a rerun, some people in this country have won gubernatorial election with just 345 votes before, in the past. I think maybe in Sokoto State also. But the Labour Party candidate, Chijioke Edoga, he is saying that he's going to challenge the results, particularly in Kano East. Your party is saying we will challenge in Nsukka, we will challenge in Isuzo, and also in Kano East. So it looks like there's a big battle ahead from the tribunal, maybe to the Court of Appeal. How confident of eventual victory are you?
We were confident that our people spoke in one resounding voice on March 18, and that they showed their preference in electing us as the next governor of Enugu State. There are things that we believe, and we've also had to speak to our lawyers about, that we would also be taking up. So at the tribunal, which is essentially the preamble that I laid, that it may not be the right platform to begin to talk about the details of our approach to these things. We believe that we won the election resoundingly. The measures the umpire took in coming back to revisit the collation of results, there are things that we believe may require us to cross petition. But these are obviously things that we're going to all address at the tribunal. So, but we have no doubt that our message, the going around the 68 development centers, engaging the people on a town hall meeting, engaging all the young people, going to the universities, trying to unpack what the tomorrow we refer to as being here, what that holds for the young people, talking to them about the digital economy, how we would help migrate the economy of the state to a digital economy, and also create an opportunity for them to flourish in where the world, because we know that the lay of the land is shifting rapidly. And if we do not enhance the skills of our young people, perhaps the skill set that they have today would be expired, and we would, be struggling. So we've talked to them about this movement to the world of robotics, the world of artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality, how we can create an opportunity for them to flourish in those areas, how we can enhance their skills, how we can, of course, set up innovation incubation centers across the 3 senatorial zones, how we're going to set up the special agro-allied processing zones, the industrial park. You've talked about the clusters and the hubs, for how we are going to transform our young people from being job seekers to wealth creators and employment generators. So these messages resonate quite frankly, with our young people. And we're confident that the outcome of the election is truly the reflection of the voices of the people of Enugu State.
Okay, so because you do indeed need to provide jobs for those young people, sizable portion of them, I think over the 50% percentile, are unemployed. So I'd like to know your thoughts, apart from tech that you've talked about, and agriculture and a couple of other sectors. Secondly, I've had some good memories of Enugu State myself, been there, lived there for a couple of months myself. And one thing that was really instructive for me was going to those old coal mines. I had the joy of going to the now defunct colliery mines of Enugu and a couple of other mines. What were you going to do about the coal industry to be able to resuscitate? Because a lot of people fail to realize that coal was heavily first mined in Enugu in 1916. And since then, it used to be an economic, heartland and hope for Enugu, hence the name the coal city. But now we're having nothing. Are you talking to some possible partners? Can there also be a possibility to use coal to be able to generate electricity for Nigeria's industrial development? Are you talking me through and excite me about ideas as regards that?
Thank you, Rufai. And I think it's a good thing that you just pointed out about the consequential roles Enugu has played in the economic and the historical trajectories of these of Nigeria. We believe that that is essentially what we want to take Enugu State to. The fact that Enugu has always, played that very consequential role. And you talked about even in the 1916 and all that. The coals, it may also interest you to note that Enugu has the best grade of coal in the world, comparable to what you have in Japan. And so we have 2 approaches to our coal. Our coal is something that we would either use to produce, so we use the clean coal that we have in Enugu to power our industries, create power plants that you can fire with coal energy. Or we can also begin to negotiate the coal as a stranded assets that we're warehousing in Enugu, and how as a sub-national Enugu, how do we benefit from the stranded assets of coal that is here and not being mined or exploited. So there are a couple of approaches we have towards, harnessing the resources we have, particularly coal.
Anyway, Mr. Mbah, let's take a short break. Stay with us. When we return the conversation with you, we'll continue. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Our guest is still Peter Mbah, the governor-elect of Enugu State. Thank you very much for staying with us, Mr. Mbah. Two quick things. We've been talking about, growth areas, revenue, and all that. But what are those low-hanging fruits that you think you can quickly deliver? Because even the water project in Enugu Metropolis that you have given 180 days, I'm not even sure that the pipelines there are in place, so that would be quite challenging. But what are those low-hanging fruits that you can quickly deliver, maybe in the creative sector, maybe with regard to tourism and development? And then secondly, why do you want to go through all this trouble? The first time I heard your name, they were saying you're an oil and gas magnate making a lot of money in the oil and gas industry. All these issues you have been looking at look like serious headache. Could it not have been easier for you to just be making your oil money and then, just have peace?
Thank you, Ruben. I'll come back to the drivers why we're in this. But let me start by dealing with the quick fix. There are a couple of quick fixes that we could get on with. We have you've just mentioned water, and by the way, the reticulation, the distribution side of things, what we did was to segment our water supply into 3 segments. So we have the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream. The upstream is the supply side of things, which is the production. Then the midstream is the transmission, so moving that the water you produce to the storage. And then, of course, the downstream, which is the distribution, making sure that the pipes to distribute to the different locations, the different layouts and the estates are in place. So in Enugu, we're fairly okay with the distribution. Of course, there are new layouts where we have to extend the distribution, and which is why we did the GIS mapping, which is already in place. So once we're able to address the production, which is the major challenge we have, and it is the quick fix that we want to quickly do, and that's why we said to Enugu, in 180 days, you're going to have water. So that's a quick fix for us. That's a low-hanging fruit. We should be able to get that. The other low-hanging fruits, we want to convoke an investment, diaspora and investment a forum immediately within the 100 days of coming to power. We want to essentially also begin to, because we want to lift our people from poverty, there are a couple of things we're going to do in that area. We want to be able to ensure that we begin to also clear the pensions and the gratuities of workers. We want to deal with, again, investors, as I keep saying, are not Father Christmas. They want the right environment, whether it's the policy environment or the fiscal environment. So there are things we have to deal with. So we're going to, get on with making sure that those things are in place, the infrastructure. Enugu has been adjudged to be one of the safest and secure place to live. We're going to ensure we build on that, continue to make it a safe place for people to live. And then, of course, why do I leave the relatively safe corporate and private sector environment to the rough and tumbles of and the murky water of our Nigerian politics? Again, I'm driven. It's all driven by that urge to serve, the transcendental value. So it's not something that the new direction my career is taking is driven by that urge. The fact that this is something beyond self. If you look at it from the point of view of, in terms of earning, as you know, the space where I play, the downstream of the oil and gas sector, which is again a mature sector that we came into, and were able to displace the incumbents in that sector and became the number one in terms of the volume and the market share and revenue in that space. So leaving that to come and to come into the public sector space, it's a sacrifice that can only be driven by a value that is beyond you. It transcends one. So I think about how do we ensure that we get people out of poverty, what are the strategies, and that's why we're in this.
Mr. Mbah, I quickly want to talk to you about health. As we speak today, how many primary health care centers do you have within your fold now as your governor-elect in the state? What is the assessment of the state of these primary health care centers? What will be your plan for these primary health care centers? How much, do you intend to devote to revamping all of these primary health care centers? Because you have a high level of maternal mortality rate in your state, which is a big problem.
We have about 400 primary health care centers in our state. So you have primary health care centers almost in all the communities. But there's something you raise which is critical. How do we ensure that all the health centers are operational? The current government has already started working on refurbishing, renovating, and re-equipping those primary health centers. We're going to build on that. I know that as at the last count, over 100 have been refurbished, renovated, and re-equipped. We're going to continue to ensure that we get all the primary health center in the state refurbished, re-equipped, and renovated. But above all, which is the major challenge, is to also make sure that we have the proper staffing in those primary health care centers. So we have the community health extension workers. And the objective for us is to make sure that the primary health centers are operational 24 hours a day, so that at each shift you have a minimum of 2 community health extension workers. So our plan is to make sure we have for each primary health care centers, you have 4 staff there. So 2 on a shift and the other 2 on the next shift. So that's what we want to do to ensure that we address. As you pointed out, we are interested in making sure that our maternity mortality rate, our infant mortality rate, our under 5 and our comorbidity rates, which is again taking us to the secondary and the tertiary aspect of things. But for those primary health care assets, they are critical to address these parameters, these indices of healthcare that you have just outlined, and our objective is to be in line with the SGD goals.
Well, we'd like to thank you very much, Mr. Peter Mbah, for joining us on the morning show. Thank you very much indeed.